your objective when you're teaching ERpsim is not to get the keystrokes right. That's just the price of admission. Your objective is to make the students independent as quickly as possible and establish a learning environment where people feel really safe to try things, to experiment, and to fail. So this is a place where we actually celebrate failure rather than penalize failure. So it's a kind of a unique learning environment. Let me tell you a quick story about learning, and it's one that I believe captures a lot of what the learning environment in ERpsim is all about. I believe that most of the learning that we do is all based on very early learning models that we have. And one of the earliest is learning how to walk. And if we kind of dissect learning how to walk, we learn a great deal. Many of you are probably parents, and you've probably observed or assisted a child in learning how to walk. So if we think about it, there's maybe 4 or 5 components. The first component is when you see a baby starting to make those moves about learning to walk. The first thing we do is we start taking care of the environment. We maybe cover the dangerous glass table with maybe some foam on the corners. We maybe put up a gate across the stairway so the baby doesn't fall down. We maybe remove some precious items from the places the baby might get to. So all of those things are essentially making the environment safe for failure. So because we know that that baby is not going to succeed right away, so instead of saying, look, you have to do it right off the bat, you have to get this walking thing right, we know that's not possible. So we start by saying, well, let's make it safe to fall down. Let's make it safe to fail. And that's the first basic principle in your classroom, is making it safe to fail. And in fact, even celebrating failure, because that's the way people are going to learn. Now, the second thing that you'll find that that parents do, that you may well have done, is creating what I would call a scaffold. And you probably all know it. I mean, you put your fingers out and you walk along with the baby and you kind of offer support, or we even maybe get them a little walking device so they can be in this device and they can walk with some supports. That's scaffolding. That's giving the people the possibility of being able to walk on their own without continuous help, but giving them just enough help so they can get the feel of it. And that's what, of course, some of our instruction and some of our job aids do. They give the people a scaffold, a framework in which they can work, where they can have a look. I can't remember how to do this, or I need. So that's scaffolding. We also notice that when you're teaching a baby to walk, you often give a lot of support, particularly when the baby has a problem. And when the baby has a problem and falls down, we often say, don't worry, stand back up, try again. And maybe we offer the scaffolding back as an option. That's the third principle, is supporting the failure and making a person realize that the failure is not a bad thing. That's actually part of the learning process. The falling down is part of the learning process. As the baby gets a little better, we start to remove some of the scaffolding. So at the beginning of the class, a student might ask a question and you will give them the answer. Oh, do it this way, it's simplest. But as the class goes on, you'll fade or remove some of that scaffolding. And you might begin to say, a question will come up and you'll say, but that's a really good question. How would you find that out? Or what might the answer be? Or can you speculate about the reasons that might have happened? That's the fading or the removing of the scaffolding. Now, the final part, and probably the most important part in this milieu, in this learning milieu, is this. A baby falls down and then stands up, and falls down and stands up. And we know that if you just fall down and stand up, you're not learning. There's got to be an intervening process. And the intervening process is the observation of the things that happened that caused me to fall down, and the correction of those things. In the learning world, we call this the detection and correction of error. And it is the key it is really the key principle that we're aiming at in ERpsim is that for people to try something, to fail, and then to observe what happened when they failed. Now that could be at the transactional or keystroke level. Very simple. Oh, I tapped the wrong keys. I need to correct. It could be at the tactical level, or most interestingly, it could be at the strategic level. But what we want to do is encourage that notion of the detection and correction of error. We tried something, we fell over, and now we're going to try something else. So that's really a key point. So let me review those. The first one is safety. And safety means you really have to encourage people that winning the game, having the best net margins or the best revenue, whatever, that's not the issue. The issue is trying lots of things so you can begin to learn and grow within the software. And the second thing is really helping, supporting, scaffolding the early behaviors, supporting people as they fail so they have the confidence to try again. And finally, that notion of removing scaffolding and allowing people to make their own mistakes, detect and correct error. Now, I've noticed many times, both in myself and in other trainers, in traditional training, in traditional learning, we really love to help people not fall down. It's almost hardwired into us. You see someone falling, well, you want to grab them and help them so they don't fall. You have to be very cautious about that in ERpsim. I've seen trainers who are doing this class who very much want to help, to give hints. If they see someone going down a wrong path, they want to help correct them so they don't screw up, right? Don't. Let them make their mistakes and then scaffold and help and support around the notion of, wow, that was a very interesting error. You know, can you find out how you made that error? Was it something about your conversations? Was it something about your analysis? Was it something you didn't know? Can you do an analysis of why that error happened? And then can you correct it in the next quarter? That's really when you're acting as a real coach and teacher within this sim.